most of us, our dream job would be playing in the NBA, getting paid to travel the world and play the sport that we love. It couldn't possibly get any better than that. It almost sounds like it's too good to be true. And for a lot of the players in the NBA, they are living out their dream. That is their dream, and they turn it into a reality. You hear stories all the time talking about how NBA stars went from having not the best upbringing to becoming the person that they are today. These motivational, inspiring, amazing turnaround stories. But in life, not every single story is the same. Not all of them have these happy Cinderella endings. That includes some NBA players. Not every NBA player struggles and becomes a star. As crazy as it sounds, it's not even every NBA player's dream to be in the NBA. Yo, what is up guys? It's me, Zach Lee, and today I'm going to be telling you guys what is without a doubt the most mysterious story in NBA history. The Brian Williams, aka Bison Dele story. So, let's go. Bison Dele, aka Brian Williams, is probably not a name that a majority of NBA fans are familiar with, playing with a total of 5 teams over the course of his relatively short 8-year professional career. However, unlike most professional basketball players who have short careers, Bison's career wasn't cut short due to injury or because he wasn't good enough to play in the NBA. Bison was seen as a very solid backup center in the NBA. He had career averages of 11 points and 6 rebounds per game, even though he only played in 9 games that season because when the season started, he was still a free agent since no team was willing to sign him, since his asking price to be signed was seen to be way too freaking high. He still won a championship with the Chicago Bulls that year back in 1997 after they signed him towards the end of the season as they prepared for their playoff push. A backup big man who had a chance to be a starter on some other NBA teams. He did start on a couple of NBA teams, started 65 games with the Los Angeles Clippers in the 1995-1996 season, and put up a respectable 16 points and 7 rebounds per game, and then was also a starter once again for the Detroit Pistons in the 1998 NBA season and averaged an even more respectable 16 points and 9 rebounds per game. So Bison Dele had the skill set, he had what it took to have had a long and successful NBA career. But like I said in the beginning, even though every NBA player is living our dream, not every NBA player is living theirs. See, Bison never wanted to be an NBA player in the first place. He grew up as a track and field star until he had an unbelievable growth spurt that made him grow to 6'9". And as an athlete at that height, he felt he was expected, that he had to play basketball. So he did. He started taking the game seriously, wound up playing college ball for the University of Arizona for 2 years before being selected 10th overall by the Orlando Magic in the 1991 NBA draft. Bison had made it to the big leagues. He got drafted, which for most players in the NBA, being drafted is the day they call the best day of their lives, but that wasn't the case for Bison Dele. Like I said, playing basketball just didn't bring Bison happiness. He felt trapped by his height. He was so unhappy with the sport that one day he was reading the biography of Miles Davis in the team locker room when he bursted out into tears. His teammate at the time, Tom Tolbert, asked him why he was crying, and Bison just told him that he just wishes he had the same passion for basketball that Miles had for music. And I guess this will be a pretty good time for me to give you guys some more background information of what it was like for Bison growing up. He was given the name Brian Williams at birth, and I know I said this story wasn't like every other feel-good story in the NBA about the kid with a troubled childhood who winds up becoming an NBA star, and it's not. But that doesn't mean that Bison didn't have a troubled childhood. He was born into a family of 4, a mother, a father, and then his older brother, Kevin Williams. However, his parents divorced when Bison was still very young. The mother remarried, and after that, all we know is that Bison and his brother both had really rough and troubled upbringing. So much of a rough upbringing, in fact, that Bison and his brother had both attempted suicide. And on top of that, Bison's brother Kevin also struggled with alcohol problems, which caused him to be in and out of the ER on a regular basis. Even though they had rough upbringings that didn't make the two brothers very close. Bison and Kevin weren't close at all, always arguing and fighting with each other. They were just a very dysfunctional family, which led to the entire family eventually breaking up and going their separate ways. Bison's brother Kevin then changed his name to Miles DeBoard, and Brian Williams became Bison Dele. Now back to his professional career though. Kevin Porter, who was Bison's personal manager, said that Bison always told him that he would only stay in the NBA until he saved up $10 million. After that, he was calling it quits, and he kept pretty true to his word. Bison, even though he still had another 5 years, $36 million on his contract remaining with the Detroit Pistons, walked away entirely from the NBA in 1999, leaving all of the money and fame behind to find what it was that makes him happy in life. And to do that, Bison decided that he wanted to travel and sail the world until he found exactly what it was that does make him happy. So then Bison convinced his girlfriend, Serena Carlin, to quit her job as a realtor in New York and join him on his adventures. The two of them were spending their days together in Tahiti on Bison's boat that he called the Hakuna Matata, until one day, just like a LeBron chase down block from seemingly out of nowhere, Bison's older brother, who is now called Miles, shows up saying that he wants to repair their relationship. When he showed up, Miles was broke, jobless, and homeless. He was said to be the type of guy who was always into these get-rich-quick schemes and was always coming to Bison with ideas asking for money. Bison once gave in to one of Miles' ideas, and the get-rich-quick scheme turned into a go-broke-even-quicker scheme, and that was pretty much where Bison drew the line. He just couldn't take any more of his brother's nonsense. The two of them, of course, didn't talk much after that. But now, many years later, Miles shows up, just like I said, out of the freaking blue, jobless, broke, and homeless. So Bison decided that he would let his brother stay with him and his girlfriend Serena on the Hakuna Matata. But unfortunately, just like the old days, the two of them just couldn't get along. They would always be fighting over everything. It got so bad that eventually Serena left the boat because she said she didn't feel comfortable with Miles being there. And it wasn't long after that that Bison left the boat to go after Serena. Once the two of them got back together, they returned to the boat. However, Miles was no longer there. And Bison and Serena had plans to sail the seas to Hawaii just to take a trip and get away from everything for a couple of months. They had hired a professional sailor and everything to help out with their journey. But then once again, right before they were prepared to leave, Bison's brother Miles shows up again out of nowhere. He tries to apologize and make things right, and also kind of just invited himself to sail with them. Which leads us to July 6th, 2002. Bison, Serena, Miles, and the sailors set sail on their trip. Serena let her mom and best friend know that she was getting ready to set sail and told them not to worry too much if they don't hear from her for a couple of months. She then called Kevin Porter, one of Bison's best friends and his personal manager, and let him know the same thing. According to Kevin, she then said Bison wanted to talk to him, but the phone cut off right before he was able to say anything. Kevin thought it was just pretty typical. Losing cell phone reception at the time was pretty common, so he didn't think it was anything big. However, he also didn't know that that would be the last time he or anyone else would ever hear from Bison or Serena again. After a couple of months went by and Serena's mother and best friend still haven't heard from her yet, they began to get kind of worried. They know Serena told them not to worry since she may have no way of contacting them on the islands, but still, they figured that 10 weeks was just too long and knew something had to be wrong. They called Bison's personal manager Kevin and asked him to look into it. So Kevin called Bison's banker to let him know that they were looking for him and if he had any idea of where Bison could be. The banker said he had no idea where he was, but he had been noticing some pretty unusual spending activities coming from his account. Someone had just wrote a check for $152,000 for a gold company in Southern California. And that set off a couple of red flags for Kevin. The first flag was that if Bison was back in the States, then why hasn't anyone heard from him or Serena? And the second red flag was that he said Bison hadn't written out a check in over 5 years to anyone, and also that he would never spend that much money on gold. So he knew right then that that couldn't have been Bison who made that purchase. So he called the gold company and got in touch with the owner. He asked the owner about the $152,000 order that he just received and was told that an NBA player named Brian Williams placed the order, but he hadn't sent the gold out yet. Kevin got the number that was attached to the order, but when he called it, he found out that the phone belonged to Bison's brother Miles. After learning that Miles had been impersonating Bison and placed a $152,000 order of gold in his brother's name, Kevin and Miles had a conversation on the phone. All Kevin said he did was just ask Miles if he had heard from Bison recently and knew where he was, never bringing up anything about the gold or letting him know that he was impersonating his brother. Miles said that he had no idea where his brother was, and the phone call ended there. Now knowing that Miles was most likely behind the sudden disappearance of Bison, Kevin decided to call the police station to set up a sting to have Bison's brother Miles arrested and questioned. How it went down was like this. The gold distributor called Miles and let him know that he could come and pick up his order whenever he wanted. When he got there, they asked him if he was indeed Brian Williams, who he claimed to be when placing the order. He said yes and signed his name, or Brian's name, to confirm the order. Right after that, the police came out of the back and arrested him and took him into questioning. However, during the questioning, his story started to change. Miles told Bison's friend Kevin that he couldn't say exactly why, but he just needed the money and he needed it quickly. The Bison had sent him back to get some money because they were in serious trouble and he was the only one that could get away. Kevin was asking what kind of trouble they were in, if they were being held hostage, if they were okay, if they were still alive, but all Miles could say was that he didn't know. All he knew was that he needed the money. After Miles refused to say anything else or give more details, the district attorney ruled that the police didn't have enough to keep Miles in custody, so they let him go scot-free. But that wasn't good enough for Kevin. He just had to find out exactly what happened, so he followed Miles to the airport for more questions. Miles then invited Kevin to come with him to Mexico because, according to Kevin, Miles told him that he wanted to go to Mexico because he said California and Nevada both had the death penalty. And at that point, it's like, okay, so if you didn't do anything, why are you worried about what states have the death penalty? Why are you trying to flee to Mexico if you said both Bison and Serena are in serious trouble? Things just weren't adding up. Not too long after that, since Bison and Serena were both still missing, a warrant was set out for Miles' arrest since he was the only one who had any connection at the time to their disappearance. Knowing that he had to escape, Miles went to his girlfriend and asked her for a ride to Mexico. On the ride, Miles' girlfriend said that he started sharing bits and pieces of his version of the story, of his side of what happened, and according to him, he and Bison once again got into a fight the day after they set sail. The fight escalated into a full-on brawl, and in the brawl, Bison's girlfriend Serena tried to stop Bison from fighting his brother. Bison accidentally punches her in the head and impales her skull against the side of the boat. She died. According to Miles, the sailor that Bison had hired for the journey then tries to call for help, and Bison panics because he knows he has supposedly just killed his girlfriend and would be in serious trouble for that. So in order to stop the sailor from calling, he then kills the sailor too. Miles then said that he feared for his life so much that Bison would then try and kill him next, that he ran into the cabin in his room in his bag, grabbed a gun, and shot Bison to death in self-defense. Sounds like something straight out of a movie to me. I don't know why she did, but after hearing that story, the girlfriend continues to drive Miles to Mexico, drops him off, and then a couple days later, after she drops him off, she then goes to the police station and told them what Miles had told her. After that, the FBI got involved and issued an international manhunt for Miles, but they were never able to find him until September 20th. 2002, when Miles winds up being taken into the hospital because he was found unconscious in a coma from what they call an insulin overdose. The doctor said there was almost no chance that he would ever awake from his coma, so Miles' mother decided to pull the plug and he wound up dying after that. Taking the truth of what actually happened to Miles, Serena, and the sailor with him. And I say taking the truth of what really happened with him because while Miles did give his side of the story to his girlfriend who gave it to the police after the FBI got involved, they investigated, and during their investigation, they found the Hakuna Matata. They found Bison's boat, and forensic evidence showed that there is no way that Miles' story matched up with what actually happened. The FBI said that if Bison really did punch Serena in the head and impaled her skull against the side of the boat, killing her, that there would have been a blood splatter on the side of the boat. There was no blood found on the side of the boat. Matter of fact, there was no blood found on the boat whatsoever, which also didn't make sense because in Miles' story, he said that he shot Bison in self-defense, killing him. Now, it might just be me, my logic might just be off, but when someone gets shot to death, typically there is at least one drop of blood in the scene. There was no blood on the boat whatsoever, no sign of blood on the boat whatsoever. And on top of that, the FBI said that the boat had its original dock, its original flooring intact, so that hadn't been changed to hide any evidence. So there was no way that Miles' story of what went down is actually true. However, since neither Serena or Bison were ever heard from again, they have both been pronounced dead. And there are a couple of speculations of what actually happened to them. Some people think that Miles did kill them, but just didn't do it on the boat, he did it somewhere else. And others think that maybe he held them at gunpoint and kind of forced them off the ship, left them stranded, and they died at sea. And then other people believe that this was all staged. This was their way of starting a new life on some small island somewhere just to get away from everything, start over. And overall, this is just by far the craziest, most bizarre NBA story ever. You have a player that makes it to the NBA, that doesn't want to be in the NBA, walks away from $36 million to travel the world, and winds up missing, never heard from again. Not the typical feel-good NBA story, but that's going to lead us to the question of the day. What do you guys think happened? Do you think that Miles killed Bison and Serena? Or do you think that they could possibly be still alive, just hiding out on some small island somewhere? Let me know down in the comment section below, but now let's take a look at what you guys said in yesterday's video. And yesterday, I asked you guys if you think LeBron James leaving Cleveland, and if so, where is he going? And here's what you said. Imagine LeBron going to Boston just to mess with Irving. Question of the day, I believe the Cavs will get Dwayne Wade and maybe Cousins, and they will win versus Golden State. And LeBron will stay in Cleveland, but I would love to see him playing for the Spurs. Question of the day, speculating about where LeBron is going a year before his contract up is corny. Let's just enjoy the season and see what kind of fight the Cavs will put up against the Warriors. Speculating about something a player like LeBron could do this early is nothing normal. It's going to happen from now until forever. And like I said yesterday, if the Cavs can pull off a miracle and beat the Warriors this year, I definitely think LeBron will stay. And if not, I still think the dark horse could be the San Antonio Spurs. I would like to see what he can do with Kawhi Leonard and Greg Popovich. That could be a very deadly combo. But like always, don't forget to leave a like if you enjoyed the video and subscribe for more daily NBA videos. Until tomorrow, keep getting the Bucks, Team STC, and I'm out of here.